Graphic design defined. The what, how, where, when and who of graphic design. Welcome to Graphic Design Defined. Over the coming weeks, we'll take you on a stroll through the technicolor world of graphic design. We will cover everything from the visual and psychological art of storytelling, including branding, typography and logo design, to what to expect from a career as a professional graphic designer. This series of podcasts is brought to you by the Graphic Design Academy of Ireland. And hi there, my name is Fiona Byrne. I am joined by Sam Baker, professional graphic designer and lead tutor here at the Academy. And today we're thrilled to be joined by an esteemed guest, Mr. Marcus Hartung. He's multi-award winning creative director of Ogilvy in Dublin. So Marcus, welcome. I guess we'll start with a really simple question. Who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself and your creative career.
My goodness, yes, that's yeah. Well, my creative career is quite extensively long, so I'll try and make the answer as short as possible. But as you say, I am a creative director, creative lead in Ogilvy Dublin, which is the advertising wing of the group. I've been there for about 12 years. I've been creative director close on 7 or 8 years. My journey was an interesting one. I did a bachelor's degree in classical history and Latin, which by anyone's logic, that completely fits in with design. But it was a kind of a weird one. I did that because I don't know if you've ever seen these kind of odd situations, but my brother is an industrial designer and he went to design college and he's 4 years older than me, and I didn't want him to think I was copying him, so I avoided going to design, and that's all I really actually wanted to do, was a design degree. But I knew he'd be like, "Oh, you're trying to copy me," so I went off and did my next favorite thing, which was history. But then I, for my master's degree, I wanted to get into advertising.
Right.
And I think everyone has a story of how they end up where they end up, but for me, it was seeing Guinness horses. I saw that commercial and I was like, I don't care if that's commercial. I don't care if it's trying to sell something. That's just brilliant. And I really, really want to be a part of that, and whoever does that. So I was audacious enough to go for that master's degree in that. Thought I was going to be a suit. Thought I was going to be Don Draper. Yeah. Thought I was going to wear the three-piece suit with the scotch and ice, until an art director tutor there sat me down and said, "You're mad. You are 100% a designer, and not only that, you're an art director," which we can get into later and explain the difference, if there is any. And then from there, I managed to blag my way into the largest agency in Ireland. And when I say blag, I really mean blag. And I think that's an important part of what we'll be talking about later, is how you go about that. And I was very lucky to get a job in that agency, and the rest is history. I love the design element of advertising, which is what I'll be discussing today.
Brilliant. Are you a blagger, Sam? Did you blag your way into graphic design, or did you go the more, I don't know, traditional route?
I don't know. I think, there's always an element, like Marcus kind of hinted at there. There's always an element of blagging in every sort of interview and sort of scenario you put in a sort of creation development sort of stages. And I similar. I kind of stepped into a role which I maybe was slightly out of my depth with, and I think at that stage you just kind of go, right, I'm here now, let's just make the most of it. And you kind of have to step up to that plate and make sure that you be the best version of yourself in that sort of time. So I started off in one of the biggest banks in the world. I started off working for Citibank back in the day, and doing all their sort of English British sort of communications across the group, which was scary, because you're in the meeting with multi-millionaires constantly trying to bat your ideas down and say that they don't work and we don't want them to be that creative, etc. So and then like Marcus, I kind of just went off from there, and I've been many places since.
So do you think it's important to aim high? Like, I mean, I know when you're younger as well, you sort of have more bravado, and we tend to just think we'll blag our way into anything. But, is that a risk, you think, to sort of aim a little too high and then fall further, or just go for it and, trust that you can get there, be ambitious, basically?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Sam, I'll jump in on that one, because I think when I look back on the audacity of youth, I had no wavering notion in my head that this isn't what I wanted to do.
Wow.
that I shouldn't deserve to be. And I don't mean it's arrogance. I think it's audacity. It's kind of different, because what's funny about creatives is in a lot of their life, they're not arrogant people.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to their work, they actually have this kind of stalwart, steadfast opinion that it's really good. And I think when I started out, I was unwavering in my opinion that I could do good work. And you know, when I was in that agency, they took on, as happens a lot, and I think a lot of your listeners, when they're starting out on trying to get a job, will find that there's a kind of a mass hire situation where they'll hire 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 and 8.
Right.
This agency hired 8 creatives, and we watched them all disappear one by
All at
one.
once, like you just hired in your boat. Wow.
All at once. And we sat there, and when I say we, in advertising creative, you tend to work in teams. So I was working with a copywriter, and we would watch as people were just leaving, like being let go. And you'd be sitting there in this constant sword of Damocles fear of, that's me. Unless I do great work, I'm going to be gone.
Wow.
Which made us reach for insane heights. And in my first couple of years, and I hate talking about this kind of thing, especially as creators, because it sounds boastful, but it's not. It's just luck, I think, more than anything. We got to make an enormous campaign that no junior in their right mind would ever be allowed near. And the client, God bless them, loved our approach, went with what we did, and we did an enormous campaign. But at no point did I think I shouldn't be in this room.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be doing this, which is really weird, because I shouldn't have been in that room.
Yeah.
But
It's like the first imposter. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because we all do have imposter syndrome. 100% we do.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the work, and it's something we really feel we've done a good job on, we suddenly get this great bravado.
Yeah.
So that would be my take on it, is that when you're starting out, lean into that amazing feeling you get when you know you're on the right mark and you've made something really good. Just keep pushing it.
Incredible. Yeah. I mean, and the confidence that would give you. Do you find that, Sam, with the students, like you have to sort of encourage that level of confidence as you're learning? I suppose you get more confident in your work. I presume when you're starting out, when you start out studying, you don't have that.
I think you have to, with the students, you have to kind of sort of nurture that within them. But at the same time, because students are coming to the course at the same level, they're sort of foundations upward. So they're going to learn about the elements and principles and kind of learn about the kind of backbones of all creative sort of processes and stuff. But it gives them the ability to be able to say, look, this is my kind of style. This is what I like to do. This is the way that I work, in line with like the foundation. So you have to build things in the same way, but people then branch off into their own sort of, not specialisms, but the way that they view things and the processes that go on can vary. So you have to give them a little bit of sort of freedom, if you like, but at the same time, manipulate that within the sort of compliance of the working methods that we know do happen and can help them progress.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's kind of like an oxymoron. Like on the one hand, you can see why when it comes to the work, people get so, committed to it, and because it's so much of you goes into it, right? It's like an extension of you, and you're expressing part of you. Yet that is an incredibly vulnerable situation to be in as well. So the fact that, creatives are sort of so steadfastly protective of that, yes, we're terrified of putting ourselves out there in so many ways as well, If you find the subject of graphic design inspiring and you're thinking, I want to know more, head over to graphicdesignacademy.ie. And that will bring me, actually, segue quite smoothly into what I wanted to talk about first, which was the portfolio, which was the, I guess, calling card and the very first thing that someone straight out of an academy or out of college is going to put together as their sort of, I guess, show their work and get them secure some employment or whatever they want to do with it. I mean, you're going to try and use that as your, literally calling card for work. So what would you say, Marcus, about, I guess, the value of the portfolio and then sort of approaching the curating and managing of it? And is it something that's an ongoing process, or is it a brand new thing? What presumably you had a portfolio. What was your sort of process?
Back in the day, we used to have portfolio. Yes. When I first started, what was funny about it, everyone could spot the designer a mile away, because we had these giant, enormous leather cases that were filled with all of our lovely visuals. What I did with my portfolio, I think I was a little bit, and this might be a kind of jumping ahead to where you want to go, Fiona, but I think to get back to that kind of trying to blag your way into it, I thought, I'm going to call up the best creative directors I know of, and I'm just going to say, can I get advice on my portfolio? But what I was really doing was going in and selling myself. Because
Right.
that is
Clever. Yeah.
So I called up all the big names I could think of, and some of them bit, some of them didn't. But the ones who did, I'm eternally grateful, because they did teach me an awful lot. And your portfolio must be curated properly. There is a temptation to throw everything in there.
Yeah.
But use people's advice, use your tutor's advice, your teacher's advice, if you can get people in the industry to talk to you about it. Have I'd love to see a really neat, tidy, small amount of work than masses of thought processes. The other thing that I would say when it comes to portfolios, and look, a lot of people listening to this will end up in some form of commercial design. It doesn't matter what form it is, but in my particular business, one of the things I like to see is the thought process. So don't be afraid to put in your scamps. Don't be afraid to show how you started. I mean, I never leave anywhere without a black notebook.
Right.
Some of the best ideas start on paper. Show people how it started on paper. But when I started, you had to lug around this huge case. Now it's brilliant. You've got everything from online portfolio sites, which are good, but if you can muster it, and if you can get a few pence together, buy a domain, buy your own name. I did that about 15 years ago, marcushartung.com. I did that about 15 years ago. And you asked, is it an ongoing process? Absolutely. I updated my portfolio yesterday. Yesterday, I put in some work. So I'm secure. I'm in a good job. I'm in a nice global agency, but that's not what it's about. So when you're updating your portfolio, it's not about, oh, I want another job. No, this is just you. There's going to be an occasion when someone wants to see what you're about. For me, it's within advertising, it's going to be every touch point. It's going to be everything from television to digital to experiential to, because that's the design world I've fallen into. So yes, I would suggest you have a portfolio, you put your best work up. It's your shop window. It's who you are. But also blag your way in with as many creative directors as you can.
So are you saying then that when you're putting your portfolio together, rather than thinking about who you're going to show it to, you're thinking about how it makes you feel as the creative?
Yeah, so that's where I've ended up. Now, starting out, obviously, you want to make sure. I got a job on one piece. One piece. I'll never forget it. The creative director turned the page. He saw a PlayStation piece I put together, and he just slapped his hands together and went, "That's it. Great. Brilliant." And I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah.
Great reaction. So that's what you need to do, is to make sure that you can show that you do the lovely blue sky thinking.
Yeah.
But also you need to show that depending on what field you're going into, how it operates, how it works, the kind of work that the creative director will want to see.
Well, yeah, of course. You need to have a bit of an insight into what you don't want to bring poster designs into a web company or,
But having said that, Fiona, I think that it's really important to show the creativity. I know that that's a word that's thrown around like crazy, but I mean, I've given jobs to people who just were so off the wall. And there used to be a saying in Ogilvy years ago, and the saying was tolerate genius. And what they meant by that was creative people are going to be annoying. They're going to be different. They're going to not run by the rules. They're going to do whatever they goddamn please.
Yeah.
You need people like that. And if there's anything in your portfolio that really shows your depth of thinking and your own personality, I remember there was an amazing young designer came into me. She was doing mad things like printing on sandpaper and just really weird stuff. And I was just like, this is so wonderfully creative, Might be applicable.
Yeah.
But I appreciate how creative you are,
Yeah, I did hear a story about somebody showing up to an agency with their card or CV inside a balloon, and you had to pop the balloon and and I thought, okay, it's kind of silly, but I remember that story. Like they're going to stand out. So I suppose that's
very famously, David Ogilvy, the man who started Ogilvy, used to go to pitches. Now, if you imagine this Don Draper type character, he'd turn up in pitches with a little clown's hat on, which is a little small clown's hat, and make no mention of it. give the whole pitch. And his theory was they'll always remember the guy in the clown hat.
That is
So, whatever it takes to get noticed.
Whatever it takes, yeah. And that's, you were saying that was really clever, actually, because I don't think it matters how big or small a city you're in. Networking is really, really important. And if you can get in the right room with the right people, so
that's the only other thing I'd say on that, Fiona, is you can go to Behance, you can get Cargo Hotel, there's loads of places you can get seen. If you can get a domain, get a domain.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn, as po-faced and corporate as it sounds, LinkedIn is a great place. There's been so many people who reach out to me who are designers that I've instantly been able to see their work.
Okay. Yeah.
So Instagram, of course, is amazing.
So LinkedIn is the new knocking on doors.
It is.
Yeah.
98%.
Yeah.
Of anyone who tries to contact me and look for a job is through LinkedIn. The other 2% find me via email.
Yeah.
Which is risky because you might end up in the junk, but you won't end up in the junk on LinkedIn.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. I mean, you're probably all over this, Sam, as a tutor, guiding them to get their work out there. I thought it was interesting when you said, you put your work, it's a very clever way to just get the attention of the right people. Can you have a look at my portfolio and give me some advice?
Oh, no pressure.
Yeah. I mean, where do you then draw the line on what critique to accept and what to actually stand your ground in? Because I know that you're going to respect the opinions of people who have been professional in their field for a long time. And I mean, Sam, you would do a lot of sort of critiquing and feedbacking with the students. Is there would you ever say to somebody, no, dig your heels in if you're absolutely sure? Or is there a process to figure out whether you're just being stubborn, or what's the right way to go about that?
Who knows? It varies from person to person, and the way that it's more about the way that you do it and the way that you react to it. I think, from my point of view, it's about how you take that sort of, not criticism necessarily, but questioning of your work, and you kind of spin it and you say, well, actually, I've done this because of this, and you can back it up a little bit. I think it's more about that for me, especially as a tutor, to be able to say, look, what are you trying to show here? And they're going, well, I'm sort of thinking about this, the repetition here, and etc. And I'm trying to apply these principles. And then you go, okay, well, you're trying it, you're not quite managed it. Maybe think about doing this. It's more about that sort of a process for me, and I'm sure Marcus is probably the same in your kind of working method.
Yeah, 100%.
It's constructive, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, a great creative direction is not telling someone what to do. Great creative direction is guiding them to the path of salvation. I do that all the time with my teams. I'd look after creative teams, traditional advertising teams, as well as animators, designers, and all manner of different skill sets. Sometimes, and I've been the victim of this as well, sometimes creative people have such a big vision, they don't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes they've looked past what the idea actually is and have gone too far.
Right.
And, far too often I've seen in my work when it has been critiqued properly, and that's the important point, Fiona. Not every piece of advice is going to be the correct advice, but the simple way to look at that is if more than one person has said the same thing, they might be onto something. So one of the things that really great creative directors I've worked with in my career, when I was myself just a junior designer, for example, or midweight even, or even senior, is gone, that was your idea. They bring me back and they go, see this? This is what you need to expand on. This is the area you need to be in. And they give you that freedom to go and then explore that. That's the best criticism you can get.
Yeah.
First is, would you not consider doing this? And they throw an idea at you.
Is all this design chat suddenly stirring something up inside you? Head over to graphicdesignacademy.ie. You'll get loads of info on courses, flexible study plans, and easy payment plans.
Sometimes if I throw an idea at my creatives, I'm saying this isn't it. I literally preface it with, this isn't it.
Yeah.
But you could do this, and then that sends them off. So yes, very much so, take people's opinions, but with a pinch of salt sometimes, and be confident in your approach.
Yeah, because people deal with in egos as well, so you've got to learn how to sort of navigate that, I guess. And you started out
creativity, Fiona. You hit on something.
That's subject. Okay. Well, let's unpack that, shall we? I know. I mean, I know it's just people, though, right? I mean, you kind of, certain people can read a room quicker than other people. Certain people get a good sense whether or not, you know, this person's head is in the right space, whether they're in it for the project or they're in it for themselves.
Yeah.
I suppose you have to, that comes with maturity as well, though, I'm sure, right? You learn that over time. And did you
your work is one of the more difficult things you'll learn, and nobody comes straight out of the box brand new being a brilliant presenter. Some people are gifted that way, perhaps, but I know I wasn't. I was very nervous. I was very insecure in the room, but once I started talking about my work, I got a bit better.
Yeah.
It took a lot of practice to, you know, because sometimes clients can sit there stony faced. I mean, that's just the reality. And you immediately interpret that as, oh my God, they hate it. But they're not, they're thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
You
Yeah.
have the thinking face on, you know, so it's a hard thing to get used to.
Yeah, because that's a whole other skill as well. I mean, you're literally standing in front of people. Some people fear public speaking more than death, you know? So,
yeah. I mean, absolutely. And especially you touched on it, Fiona, when you started. You said you're putting a bit of yourself out there. And whether it's commercial design or artistic design or whatever kind of design you're in, it's the same feeling.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that this is, you know, some other client's piece that they're going to put forward in your name. It is part of you. And you feel like you've put a lot into it. You know?
It's terrifying when you think about it, but it's also so liberating because, you know, you get to make a living out of it eventually, you know, and that's like, I mean, that's a wonderful place to be.
Don't regret a second of it.
Yeah. And did you start then in agencies always, or did you ever freelance?
Always. I freelance, I think just for my disposition and my personality, it wouldn't have worked.
Okay.
I think I very much like to collaborate.
Yeah.
I like to be a part of something. I love that grifting and hustle of getting something over the line as a team. I really enjoy leading my designers and my copywriters. And I think freelance is, some people are just absolutely brilliant at it. They are wonderful. And I think it comes down to a personality of being able to go from one place to another place, sell yourself a lot more than you normally would have to. You have to make cold calls. You have to contact people. You have to, all of that. So
Grind, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are amazing at it, though. It just wasn't for me personally. I think my father had a say in that. He ran his own business and he used to say to me, take the paycheck.
That's not to be said for
I'd be like, okay, whatever you do, take the paycheck.
You've done both, Sam, right? You're freelance and you've worked for companies and agencies. How would you describe this sort of fundamental difference? I mean, that seems to make a lot of sense, that you have to hustle hard and there is that grind. But when it comes to even presenting your work, is there a big difference, you know, between presenting as a freelancer and getting the work as than there is?
Well, the fundamental difference is they like your work and they pay you, and like you get more work from it. So it's it's that sort of cutthroat at the end of the day when you're on your own. I mean, I still freelance now. I don't have much time, but I still do little bits of freelance, and I think I kind of use it as a sort of, a bit like Marcus was saying, I separate my minds a little bit. So I work as part of the team here at the academy, and we create the content for all the students to work on. But at the same time, then I've got my side hustle, if you like, as much as I hate that saying, the freelance side of stuff, where I'm able to sort of blinker myself from the outdoor world a little bit more and kind of concentrate on it. And I have a few clients that I work with day in, day out usually, and I know them, they know me, and you get a rapport and some sort of relationship between you. They like the way you work, you like the way that they respond to you, and you build it up from there. I mean, there's positives and negatives of both, obviously.
Sure.
I mean, like Marcus said, you take the paycheck in the day-to-day 9 to 5, or as a freelancer, you work harder and you potentially might earn a bit more, but it comes with its negatives, but you might not. 1 month you might be doing really well, another month you might not.
And I think it is
money sitting there going, don't touch it, don't touch it.
Yeah. I mean, and did you just then, I mean, how did you sort of overcome, or did you ever overcome that fear of, presenting, Marcus, when, that idea of standing up in front of those people? I mean, is that just something that you got easier with experience, or is there some process you went through to get better at presenting?
Yeah, I think there was, I said earlier, there is a little bit of a difference when you work in advertising, that you work in teams. And, I've had a lot of creative partners over the years, and they've all ended up being friends, and you're very close, and you feel like you're a team going in to present. And I think in some respects, that's not great, because you're not being pushed out on your own. You always have that cushion. You have that parachute. My partner can take over if I fumble a sentence.
Yeah.
So you have that for the longest time. I think the first time that I really began to get confident in presenting was when I stopped presenting in teams. There was just a few moments where I had to go in on my own and do it. And nothing makes you more focused than when you have no parachute.
Yeah.
Well, I think, again, a lot of it comes back to personality, and creative people tend to have similar personalities. They tend to be almost introverted extroverts. They want to get everything out, but then they're kind of introverted. And so they battle with anxiety. Nearly every team I've ever trained, or any designer I've ever trained, has had anxiety issues when it comes to presenting. It's the one thing, as you mentioned, Fiona, people just in life in general would go, I would rather swim with sharks than stand up and talk in front of people.
Yeah.
But like everything, practice. One of the things we do when we take on young people is, yes, we work on conceptualizing, we work on their craft, but we also work on presentation skills. So we put them in courses where they learn how to present. I mean, I've learned everything from techniques on how to stop adrenaline. One of the first things that people will, when they first present, is they might have a quivering voice, or they might have shaking hands. That is not fear, that's adrenaline. Your body has just surged you with adrenaline, and now you have to get rid of it. Obama used to famously do chin-ups before he went out for speeches. But if you are nervous, one of the simplest things you can do is just tense your core while you're sitting there. Nobody will know. You just, while you're sitting there, tense your core, adrenaline goes, and then everything's okay.
Oh, interesting. That's a really good tip, actually, because I've certainly experienced it myself, where I might thinking, I feel fine, but I'm holding this piece of paper in my hand and it's shaking, and they can see it's shaking, and I look more nervous than I feel,
Yes.
So it's just
and that can happen. I mean, in pitch situations, like day to day with clients, not so much, but I've seen people in pitch situations that I thought were the coolest cucumbers in the world, suddenly look nervous, and then that throws you, and then you're like, oh, I've got to speak after this person, and they're nervous, so oh my god. So look, there's very simple techniques that can be done, but it is the worst part of any creative's life, is having to present. But when you get good at it, and when you've practiced over time, you actually begin to look forward to it, and you go, I can't wait to sell this. So thankfully I'm at that stage now where I relish the opportunity to sell, but I can understand when young teams and young creatives and young designers feel nervous.
We cover that, don't we, in the academy? We do some presentation skills, and just the idea that it's such a major part of the work that you can't sort of just push it aside and go, I just want to focus on the creative.
You could have a great idea die just because you didn't present it properly.
There you go. Right.
Which is an awful lot of pressure, I think, for a lot of young creative people. Is, I really need to give this the best opportunity I can to sell. But that's where your mentor comes in, that's where your tutor comes in, that's where your friends come in, that's where, hopefully, if you're in a good agency, your creative director comes in.
And would you advise kind of trying to work under a mentor for a period starting out? I mean, is it hard or easy? How do you go about even securing a mentor?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, even at this stage in my career, I try and secure mentors within the network. So, I try and make sure that there's somebody that I can kind of soundboard with. That's the most important thing. Somebody you trust, somebody who you know has your taste, because you touched on that earlier. How do you know when you've done good stuff? Well, you know. You know when you have. But it's important. I think that's probably why I was suggesting maybe not at first freelance, because working in creative environment with other people will build your confidence. And then you can very easily go freelance like Sam did, and be confident in what your opinions are. But it takes time, and a mentor is a good idea.
Would you agree, Sam? Did you work under a
Yeah,
mentor?
my mentor is weirdly the guy that took me on for my very first job at the bank. I'm still friends with him now. He's got a massive grey beard, he's one of those guys that you kind of just click with some people, and like you say, Marcus, you kind of have a similar kind of wavelength and creative wavelength, and we both know what we're both good at, and that ability to be able to talk to someone about your ideas, and they kind of go, yeah, I get it, you're going here, here, and here, and you go, yeah, how did you almost intuitively in line with each other's sort of creative process. And yeah, you do need that. You need that kind of sound, like Mike said, a sounding board, some sort of ability to be able to talk to someone about your ideas and know that they will get it or not, depending on what it is. And
you can see how that works, you know, because it's so much in your head, you know, that you really need to sort of get it out. And like you said, the woods for the trees, you know, you can get really lost in your own sort of creativity, and it doesn't make sense.
You have to purge. You have to purge. Even now, I have to purge the bad ideas. You know, so, you know, we all know the terms low-hanging fruit, you know, first thoughts. These are areas you need to work past. You need something that you got excited about within the first hour will be something you hate 2 days later. So just work through it. You know, that's a sign of really good confidence in knowing that you'll get there. Whether it's, you know, some kind of odd intervention. Sometimes the ideas just pop in. You don't know where they've come from. You have no thought process of where it came from, but it's obviously your subconscious just pushing forward the answer.
If you want to hear the rest of this chat, make sure to tune into the next podcast of Graphic Design Defined. If you find the subject of graphic design inspiring and you're thinking, I want to know more, head over to graphicdesignacademy.ie. Whether you just want to see if graphic design is for you, or you're a pro and you need to upskill, there's a course for everyone.